Hi, I'm Paul Hager, and today I'm going to talk to you about voting. Why am I doing that? Well, in a nutshell, all of the problems with our political system stem from failures of choice, failures of the voting method we use. Everybody understands the problem of split vote that begins to manifest itself just as soon as you have more than two candidates. But it goes beyond that. There was a fundamental problem with the two-party system. Everybody's aware of it. Everybody's aware of the polarization, the venomous exchanges that take place between our fellow citizens, people of generally goodwill, and they hate each other. How did that come to pass? Is it a problem with people? No, it's a problem with system. I have a saying, system is everything. The voting system is failing us. It gives us these polarized two parties. Some people are beginning to understand that. And there is a proposal for a ranked voting system known as instant runoff voting. Although people have a sense that we need some new approach, that's not the right one. The right one, the solution that will deal with all these problems, is known as round robin, or you could call it instant round robin. And for those of you who, like me, may be aficionados of social choice theory or voting science, it's known as Condorcet voting. So let's talk a little bit now about the split vote problem and how IRV's system fails and how round robin succeeds. And I should also point out that this is something that I have been involved in for over 25 years. So I'm not new to this. Talking about changing the voting system is something that I think is absolutely essential. So let's take a look here, a little bit more detail about the voting systems. Instant runoff is literally, it is doing a runoff election, which might take multiple rounds. It's doing it in one single round. It uses an algorithm, a discard algorithm that will faithfully emulate a runoff. Now you might say, well, runoffs are okay, aren't they? And I can show you, in fact, that there are problems with runoffs. And the solution is not to do a faster version of a flawed system. Oh, and by the way, it's not necessarily faster, but we'll get into that. Now, round robin emulates a round robin tournament. Well, what's a round robin tournament? Well, if you're a football fan, you know about round robins because the divisional contest in the course of a football season, those are double round robins. Another example would be if you're a bridge player, those are round robin tournaments. I'm a sometime chess player. Actually, it's been a few years, but I've played in some round robin chess tournaments. And the idea is, in a round robin, contestant, or in the political sense, it would be candidate, but every contestant faces off against every other one head to head. And that's the key element. I have an example here of how a round robin tournament might be displayed in football. So I use the turtle division, which I'm kind of a whimsical guy, so naturally the worst of the teams in the turtle division is the Yertle Turtles. I refer you to Dr. Seuss. But anyway, there are two ways of showing this, and the typical way is on the left, but you can also show it as a cross table or a matrix. And that's the way I have it down on the right. Let's imagine that you have three politicians named Adams, Baker, and Cook. And there are 12 voters. Let's imagine first that only Adams and Cook decide to run. So Baker decided, I'm going to sit this one out. So let's look at that. The people voting for Cook, there are 7 people out of the 12 who are voting for Cook. So Cook wins 7-5. Pretty straightforward. Let's assume the parallel universe. This time it's Baker and Cook. And what happens when it's Baker and Cook? Cook wins 8-4. You would expect, if we put all 3 together, shouldn't Cook be the winner? But obviously no. There's a split vote situation going on. And normally the way we would resolve this is with a runoff. So let's go on ahead. And, well, the very first thing that happens is, since Cook got the fewest votes, we get rid of Cook, and all of Cook's voters end up voting for Baker, and Baker wins. So there was something was going on there, and it's obviously, it's a combination of a failure of our current system, but the runoff didn't solve it. So what if we can look in people's heads and find out what their preference ordering is, which, by the way, is the idea behind a ranked ballot. So this would be an example of a ranked ballot here, and you'll notice that every voter has a candidate who they rank first, and then they have a candidate they rank second, and it is understood that the third candidate is the person they rank third. We don't need to put that down, it's obvious. So here's the actual voter preference. So we already know that the very first thing that happens in a regular runoff is that C gets eliminated. Well, okay, we know that instant runoff is supposed to emulate it, so let's see what happens with instant runoff. So the very first thing that happens is we get rid of C. And we go to the second choice. And once we finish throwing away all the votes, who's the winner? B. That was exactly the result we got from the runoff. This is the instant runoff. It gave us the same result. Well, yes. But we had to throw votes away. Now, it's a fundamental rule, and I'm probably going to say this more than once. What you want in a voting system is you want the majority to make the choice, and you want every legitimate vote to count. We've already been seeing here that C's votes, preferences, whatever you want to call them, had to get deleted so that we could get that runoff result. All right, now, we got the same information here, but we're going to do round robin. The point of this is to show you how the matrix gets filled in. So imagine, if you will, that you have the person who is responsible for doing the tally and has got this matrix set up here and a pencil and a paper and just filling in with each voter, filling in each one of these cells. And so as we go to voter 6 here, who ranks B first and C second, you'll see how the candidate B beats both A and C, but we have to count C also, who beats A, and that gets registered. And that process continues on. And then we go to voter 9, and you see the tally continue with 10 and 11. And when we are done with that, finally finishing up with all the voters, now we evaluate. Let's look at A and B, and you do everything on the diagonal. So the green circle means the winner. So green means winner, red means loser. And we see that in A versus B, B wins 7-5. Let's look at the same thing with A and C. And C beats A, also 7-5. And finally, we do B versus C. C beats B, 8-4. So we saw that, and this should be familiar from the example that we did with the alternate universe, where it was C versus A and then C versus B, because you'll see exactly those same results that occurred where we only had the two candidates. So the round robin approach is able to decompose that world where it was only two candidates, A and C, and then two candidates, B and C. So that's the beauty of it. Now, of course, we do have B beats A. Well, that happens in the runoff. So that's what happens when you throw C away. So you'll notice that round robin captures all of that. It's all there. And that's the beauty of the system. So I've shown you sort of a simple comparison of instant runoff and instant round robin. But in the real world, things tend to get a lot more complex, and there's no way around it, but I'm going to have to get a little more complex. I'm going to try and keep this at it's a fairly simple mathematical level, but it does get just a little bit more complicated. Please bear with me. I'm not trying to punish you. It's important for you to know enough about this to realize that we are in danger of adopting a reform that is not going to do the job. That is something we don't want to do, because when it fails, and it will fail, and it has failed in the past, the result will be we will lose round robin. It will die because it will be identified with the failed IRB system. We don't want to do that. So, one of the things that we need to look at is something that I call the rank reversal paradox, because I like to talk like a normal human being most times, but if I were geeking out, then I would talk about non-monotonicity. I don't think I need to go into that. It's a rank reversal paradox. And I'm going to show you this. Now, there's another thing that I also want to talk about, and that is going to be a big problem. So just to give you some idea where we're going with this, we had the New York primary, the New York City primary, and it took a long time to count those votes. And Virginia, the gubernatorial primary, which was only 12,000 delegates, or 12,500, something like that, that took a long time to tally too, and that wasn't that many votes to count. So I'm going to explain why with instant runoff voting you can't exploit parallelism. You can't have separate counts in individual precincts or individual districts. You can't do that. You must gather all the ballots up, and they must all be taken to a central location and counted there. And that adds to the time, and that can create big problems if you have a recount. So just the logistics of implementing the instant runoff system exacts additional costs, hidden costs that could be pivotal in a real election. So we got our good buddies Adams, Baker, and Cook, A, B, and C again. So there are 5 precincts, a total of 60 voters, and as you can see here, you can see the breakdown, And you can go down each one of the lists. For example, Precinct 1, you can see that I've broken the votes down into groups of voters. So we got 4 ACBs, 4 BCAs, 1 CAB, and 1 CBA. And that's simply the order that is on the ballot. I'm doing this in the Australian way, where you have to list every single rank for every single candidate. That's the Australian way. You might have to get used to it. Imagine doing that with 10, 15, 20 candidates. In Australia, they may have 100 candidates. You don't even want to think about it. At each point, I'm going to do a side-by-side comparison here. So let's start out. We're going to look at the first 2 precincts because that illustrates this issue that I'm talking about, why the IRV system is such a logistical nightmare. So we saw Precinct 1 before, and we do the resolution, and the resolution is that there's going to be a tie. A and B tie, 5-5. Now, on the right, we see the Condorcet result, the round robin result, but it is Condorcet. So we see the round robin result, and you can see the 5-5 tie that is there. But you can also see that C actually beats both A and B by 6-4. So again, we're using that resolution on the diagonal, and that captures all of the voter preference information. Okay, now we'll look at the second precinct. And again, it's pretty straightforward, but suffice that the A's get discarded. And so IRV produces a tie here between B and C. So of course, since round robin captures everything, you can see that tie there. But you can also see that A beats both B and C. So the A got thrown out, but A is the actual winner in that precinct. Now, here is part of this is why there's a logistical nightmare. The problem is that if you take the results from Precinct 1 and the results from Precinct 2, and if you just take those and add them separately, then you get a different result than if you take Precinct 1 and Precinct 2 and you put all of those results together. Now, why is that? That shouldn't happen. You shouldn't get a different result when you take the result from Precinct 1 and Precinct 2 separately and add them together. You must take Precinct 1, Precinct 2's votes, put them all together, and then activate the IRV algorithm. You must do that. You get a different result if you don't, and that's because of discard. Discard forces you to count all the votes all together. You can't individually tally them. Now, you'll notice that there's no problem with round robin because all the votes are counted. And so you just fill up the appropriate square in that cross-tabulation or matrix. All right, now let's take a look at the total result. So remember, with IRV, you have to bundle them all together, and you have to count them at the central location. So that would be at the district headquarters. You tally everything, and of course, C is eliminated, but there's a tie between A and B. There's a 30-30 tie. Horrors. Do we need a recount? What do? Do we flip a coin? Well, it turns out there's a recount, and it turns out that there was a problem with one of the counting machines. Now, I will note, and you should note that round robin, since we were able to do this, since all the votes are being added together, we know what the result is. We know that the winner is C, beating A and B 33-27 in both cases. So C's the winner. And we got that result very quickly. All right, so let's go back to our recount, and we find out that there were two particular ballots where there was a reversal. So B gains 2 votes relative to A. I mean, I can imagine the news media, the local radio. Looks like Baker's gotten 2 more votes. Looks like Baker's the winner, folks. Nope. C is the winner. How can C be the winner if B got more votes? Rank reversal paradox, non-monotonicity. All right, so let's look at, again, the round robin result. And you can see the fact that it does capture that B gets those extra 2 votes, and it does reflect in the tally, but it doesn't matter because it doesn't affect B's loss to C. That's unchanged. That wasn't affected. Now, there's another issue here, and maybe some of you have already snapped to it, and that is that instant runoff voting, because it is throwing votes away, is illegal. It is against the law. The basic premise in a voting system is the majority should decide, and here's the key, and I think everybody understands this, even though they don't quite understand. Perhaps after this you'll understand the implications, but with IRV, which fails in this, every legitimate vote must be counted. I don't care what your political affiliation is. Everybody agrees on this. You know, was there cheating? Did the cheating make a difference? Were there errors? There's always cheating. There were always errors. Do they make a difference? Probably not. Probably not, because no system is going to be perfect. But everybody agrees every legitimate vote must be counted. And we know that IRV doesn't do that. It actually, because it throws votes away, it's violating federal law and state law. Most states have a voter intent law with a ranked ballot. We know the voter intent. It's right there in the rankings. So the rankings will tell explicitly what is in the voter's mind, and you want to make sure that that is used in the final tally. Now, there is another dimension to this, and I will point out to you that even though I do carry around a copy of the Constitution with me all the time, don't leave home without it, Section 2 of the 14th Amendment is quite explicit that citizens of states who are casting votes, and they will be voting for potentially electors for president and vice president, members of Congress, and also for state executive, judicial, and legislative offices. So they are covered in Section 2 of the 14th. They have an absolute right for their vote to not be denied or abridged in any way. That language is very broad. And if you are throwing votes out, you are abridging the right to vote. There has been some understanding about the discard problem. And the New York Times, in writing about the mayoral primary, where there were 13 candidates, and then they were winnowed down to 5. And the New York Times said, well, there were 139,000 exhausted ballots out of 940-odd thousand ballots cast. Well, what's an exhausted ballot? Well, an exhausted ballot is a ballot that had none of the top-ranked candidates on it. So all those ballots got thrown out. And the Times editorial writer wondered if those ballots not counted could have affected the result. Well, I wish I could have talked to this person, and I would have said, oh, it's much worse than you thought. It's not just 139,000, because at every step, candidates are being thrown out. And Andrew Yang was there. He was there just as he had been a candidate in the Democratic primary. And I always kind of liked Andrew. I won't go into that, but there are a lot of things I like about Andrew Yang. And he's become very frustrated with the political system. My reaction is, welcome to the party, pal. I've been there. That's why I'm talking about this today, and this is why it's been a passion of mine for 25 years. Currently, Andrew he's been taken in by this IRV idea. He's like most people, he's unaware of what the true solution is. We all agree that there's this awful polarization. There's polling that shows that a large chunk of people who identify as Democrats and a large chunk of people who identify as Republicans, they have a reflexive hatred of the other party. Well, you're also hating human beings. That's not good. The whole idea of a democratic process within a Republican system is to come up with a method of resolving our differences in a way that will be legitimate. And legitimacy means that the majority chooses. If we fail to do that, you are failing the people. You're failing us. We're the ones who get hurt by this. Now, I know that the party establishment in both parties, for certain reasons, they might not like some of this stuff I'm talking about because it affects their perquisites. If the party system were to evolve, as I would expect it to, using round-robin voting, and I think I agree with Andrew Yang, who was saying the current Democratic Party should probably be two parties. Yeah, that sounds reasonable to me. But you're not going to get there with IRV. It certainly hasn't delivered in Australia after over a century. So Andrew Yang and many people like him in both parties senses a need. I hope after listening to me today that you have a sense that there is hope. There is yet time to find this solution. But you need to get active. You need to further educate yourself. Check the material that I put up. But I've tried to give you some tools that will allow you to see that what I'm saying is 100% accurate. There is a solution. There was only one solution, and that's round-robin voting, instant round-robin, or you can look it up and look for Condorcet. That is the solution. Thank you.